Dear listeners, welcome to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the annals of time, unraveling the complexities of human history and uncovering the secrets of our shared past. Today, we find ourselves in the midst of a tumultuous era, one that would forever alter the fabric of a nation, the English Civil War. This pivotal conflict, which ravaged the land from 1642 to 1651, was a cauldron of political, religious, and social upheaval, pitting royalists against parliamentarians and leaving an indelible mark on the course of English history. As we delve into the origins of this seismic event, let us transport ourselves to the early 17th century, to the England of King James I and his son Charles I. It was a time of growing discontent, as the Stuart monarch's absolutist tendencies clashed with the increasingly assertive Parliament. The air was thick with tension, like the mist that shrouds the rolling hills of the English countryside, as the nation struggled to define its relationship between crown and legislature. We find ourselves in the year 1629, when Charles I, determined to consolidate his power, dissolved Parliament and embarked on a policy of personal rule which would last for 11 years. This period, known as the personal rule or 11 years tyranny, was marked by a series of contentious decisions, including the introduction of the forced loan in 1626, which required individuals to lend money to the crown without parliamentary approval. This move was seen as a brazen attempt by Charles I to circumvent Parliament's authority and consolidate his own power. The subsequent imprisonment of those who refused to pay the loan, including notable figures such as Sir John Eliot and Sir Thomas Wentworth, only served to further inflame the passions of the opposition. The likes of Eliot and Wentworth, who would later become key players in the lead-up to the English Civil War, were vocal in their criticism of the monarch's actions, arguing that he was undermining the traditional rights and privileges of Parliament. The short Parliament of 1640, which was convened after an 11-year hiatus, would prove to be a pivotal moment in the lead-up to the English Civil War. The Parliament's demand for regular sessions, as enshrined in the Triennial Act, and its impeachment of the king's trusted advisers, including Thomas Wentworth, now the Earl of Strafford, marked a significant shift in the balance of power. The likes of John Pym, a prominent member of Parliament, were instrumental in shaping the opposition to Charles I, arguing that the king's actions were a threat to the very fabric of English society. As we explore the intricate web of events that led to the outbreak of the English Civil War, we must also consider the role of religion in this conflict. The rise of Puritanism, with its emphasis on individual interpretation of Scripture and its critique of the established Church of England, had created a sense of unease among the traditional elite. Charles I's marriage to the Catholic Henrietta Maria, sister of King Louis XIII of France, only served to further exacerbate these tensions, as many Englishmen feared that the monarch was attempting to restore Catholicism in England. In this complex and volatile landscape, we find the seeds of the English Civil War, a conflict that would ultimately reshape the nation's politics, religion, and society. As the conflict raged on, the nation was divided between the royalists, who supported King Charles I, and the parliamentarians, who sought to limit his power and establish a more representative government. The year 1642 saw the outbreak of hostilities, with the Battle of Edgehill in October marking the first major engagement between the two sides. This battle, although indecisive, set the tone for the brutal and devastating conflict that would ensue. One of the most significant events of this period was the formation of the New Model Army by the parliamentarians in 1645. Led by Oliver Cromwell, this highly disciplined and effective force would prove to be a game-changer on the battlefield, ultimately leading to the defeat of the Royalists at the Battle of Naseby in June 1645. The New Model Army's victories were not only military triumphs, but also reflected the growing strength and organization of the parliamentarian movement. The English Civil War was not just a conflict about politics. It was also deeply intertwined with issues of religion. The rise of Puritanism, which emphasized individual interpretation of Scripture and criticized the established Church of England, played a significant role in shaping the opposition to Charles I first. Many saw the king's marriage to the Catholic Henrietta Maria as an attempt to restore Catholicism in England, further exacerbating tensions between different religious groups. Oliver Cromwell, for instance, rose from being a relatively unknown member of Parliament to become one of the most powerful men in England. His leadership and military prowess were instrumental in the parliamentarian victories, and he would eventually play a key role in the execution of Charles I in 1649. The war also had profound effects on the common people, who suffered greatly during this period. The conflict led to widespread destruction, economic hardship, and a significant loss of life. However, it also created opportunities for social mobility and political engagement that were previously unimaginable. Women, for example, began to take on new roles in society, managing estates and businesses while their husbands were away fighting. As the English Civil War drew to a close with the defeat of the Royalists, the nation stood at a crossroads. The execution of Charles I in 1649 marked a radical break with the past, establishing England as a republic or Commonwealth under the leadership of Oliver Cromwell. This period, known as the interregnum, would be marked by significant political and social experimentation, laying the groundwork for the eventual restoration of the monarchy in 1660. The period following the English Civil War, known as the interregnum, was marked by considerable experimentation in governance and society. Under Oliver Cromwell's leadership, England became a republic or commonwealth with a powerful parliament and a strong executive. This radical break with the past allowed for innovations such as the creation of a more professional army, the establishment of a navy that would eventually become a dominant world force, and attempts at legal and administrative reform. One of the most significant legacies of the English Civil War was its impact on the relationship between church and state. The war had been deeply intertwined with religious conflicts, particularly the struggle against perceived Catholic influences and the rise of Puritanism. Following the execution of Charles I, a period of relative religious tolerance ensued, allowing for the flourishing of various Protestant sects. However, this era also saw the persecution of Catholics and others deemed enemies of the state, highlighting the ongoing complexities of religious freedom and toleration. The English Civil War also had profound effects on the social and economic fabric of England. The conflict led to significant displacement and poverty among the population, but it also created new opportunities for social mobility and political engagement. Women, in particular, began to play more prominent roles in society, managing estates, engaging in trade, and even participating in religious movements. The war additionally spurred advancements in education, as the need for a more educated populace became apparent for the effective governance of the Commonwealth. Despite these developments, the interregnum was not without its challenges. Oliver Cromwell's death in 1658 led to a period of instability, with his son Richard proving unable to maintain control. This power vacuum ultimately paved the way for the restoration of the monarchy in 1660, when Charles II, the son of the executed king, was invited back to England to take the throne. The restoration marked a significant shift away from the radical republicanism of the interregnum towards a more traditional form of governance. However, the legacy of the English Civil War did not disappear with the Restoration. The conflict had set important precedents for political and religious liberty, influencing future movements such as the Glorious Revolution of 1688. This later revolution, which saw William III and Mary II ascend to the throne, enshrined certain rights and limitations on monarchical power through the Bill of Rights, laying foundational principles for modern democracy. It marked the beginning of the end of absolute monarchy in England, paved the way for the development of constitutional government, and had profound impacts on religious toleration and social change. The legacy of the English Civil War can be seen not only in British history, but also in the broader context of Western political and social development. In conclusion, dear listeners, our journey through the English Civil War has taken us through a complex and transformative period in history. Thank you for joining me on History with Herodotus as we explored this fascinating chapter in human history. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.